So today is Red Pants Sunday. You may be thinking, why didn't I wear my red pants, right? Well, there is a theory behind the red pants for Sundays. I wear these red pants, they'll last me forever because I wear them about 4 times a year. Because you only wear them on special days. And so the easiest day to pick out is the day of Pentecost, the day that we celebrate the coming of the Holy Spirit, because the theme color for the day of Pentecost is red. And today is the first Sunday of the year. It's Advent. And we begin anew. And so today, I had to dust off the red pants, iron them. I don't think I actually did. So hopefully they're straight. But in the last 2 services, we put the robes back on. And as you can tell, Brandon's not here today because he heard that we were wearing robes again. Just kidding. He's on vacation. After many months of hard work, he and his family went away for Thanksgiving to the Big Island so that they could go explore, and they come back later today. But this is the first Sunday of our year, and it's a Sunday that I anticipate for months on end. I love this time of year. I love that this time of year we get to be joyous people that are openly talking about how wonderful the story is of Christmas, and no one looks at us as weird. This is the time of year that we get to be a people that get to be really out there about our faith, that we can celebrate these Christmas trees and the putting the lights on the fence that I did yesterday at our house and all these kinds of things, because this is our season. And it doesn't belong to the retailers, and it doesn't belong to the society. It belongs to us. It is our season that we've been waiting for all year to come back to this Sunday and say, this Sunday we gather with the ancient story of people that hoped. And we're going to live into the hope of this season, that hoped for the coming of Messiah, Emmanuel, God with us. And so yesterday we had forced family fun in our house, in which it was time to go get our favorite thing, the Christmas tree. And so we got the kids in the car, and we went to Starbucks because it was kind of chilly. It was windy. And so we went and got hot cocos for the kids, and Mom and Dad got coffee, and we start driving, and we didn't tell them where we're going. They said, "Where are we going?" And we said, "Oh, we're going to go take some Christmas photos first, and then we're going to go find a tree, and then we'll go home and decorate." And so as we're driving out H1 towards Wahiwa, we passed Wahiwa, and they're like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 where are we going?" And we said, "Oh, we found this awesome swing on the North Shore out at Mokulea, and so we're going to do pictures." And they were like, "Yes, we can't wait." Just kidding. And so as we're driving, the typical refrain of all families started being belted out. How much longer? How much longer will it be? I don't know, 10 minutes. 10 minutes goes by, and one of the kids on the back says, "It's been 10 minutes, and we still aren't there yet." And how much longer? I don't know. Count to 10 more minutes, and we'll be there, I hope. We get there, someone's in front of the swing, we can't take pictures. Then we make them walk down the beach to find the perfect spot, right? Because does anyone else do this to their kids? Or did? Or am I just unusually cruel? And so we found the perfect spot, and of course it's windy, and they can't see because the sun's out and it's bright and it's hurting their eyes. And so they're all like this in the pictures. And so then we finally decided we're going to go to the Christmas tree farm out in Wahiwa. And so we get to the Christmas tree farm, we start walking, and I say, "That's the tree right there," because we're getting a small one. And so that's the tree right there. And then we went to the next tree and said, "No, that's the tree right there." And then at that point, my eldest looked at me and said, "How much longer?" I said, "Buddy, go with it. Just go with it. We're going to make Mommy happy today and Daddy happy, and it's all good. It's the Christmas spirit." And then we came to the 3rd tree, and I said, "It's a hat trick. We found 3 trees. One of the 3 have to work." And finally, the 4th tree was the tree, and we stood there, and we didn't have a saw. And the kids said, "How much longer?" They finally cut the tree, we put it in the car, we pay for it, we start driving, we turn left or right instead of left, which means we're going away from Honolulu instead of to Honolulu, and Mommy has to stop at a store to get something special that I can't talk about because kids are in here. So I'm in the car with my kids, they're jumping up and down because the chocolate milk apparently has worked fully through them at this point. And immediately, all of a sudden, it's been about 10 minutes, she's in the store, it's crazy busy, and they immediately say, "How much longer? We're hungry. We want a snack." "I don't have a snack." "Well, we're hungry. How much longer is Mommy going to be?" "I don't know." we're going to get in the car, we're going to drive back to town. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. You're going to survive. You've had 2 meals and a snack already today. You are okay. We will survive. As soon as we start driving out of whatever that town is, what was it, Waikele? Is that a town out on the west side? No, Waikele. It's on H1. It has like a shopping mall. Yeah, that's the place that we were. And so we're driving back to town, and they're immediately, the conversation the whole time is revolving around food. They're apparently dying in our house. They're not being fed enough because they kept saying how much longer we're starving for food. And so we finally get to town, and we get off at the Punahou exit, and instead of turning left to go up to Manoa, where the manse is, we turned right, and they're like, where are we going? And I don't know if you noticed when you drove on campus today, but there's 2 big tractor-trailer thingies out in the front yard. And we're selling Christmas trees. Actually, we're not. Habilitat is. And so we decided that we wanted to get a Christmas tree, smelling Christmas tree, normal-looking Christmas tree, not the Charlie Brown tree that we got out at Wahiwa. And so we get there, and then finally we get the tree in the car, and we get home, and this whole time I'm hearing this refrain from them. How much longer? We get home, guess what we did? We didn't eat. We set up the tree. Here this whole time they've been saying, how much longer? I can't survive. I'm starving. My stomach's making noise. And suddenly we get home and they're no longer hungry. They want to set up the Christmas trees. And yet this refrain, how much longer, is something that I think we've all used, haven't we? How much longer is this service going to be? Never in this church. How much longer until we get there? How much longer until Christmas Day comes? How much longer must I live in the season of mourning that I'm stuck in? How much longer until I get a diagnosis that gives me hope and a path forward? How much longer until God's kingdom is on earth as it is in heaven? Because heaven knows we need some help on this earth right now. How much longer is the refrain of the ancients as they gathered together as an Israelite community and said, how much longer until Yahweh comes to us? The Messiah would come. Emmanuel, God with us, appears and changes our reality in this world. So this day we join with the ancient chorus, O come, Emmanuel, and ransom us, captive Israel. Because we are ones that also have that refrain on our tongue, how much longer? How much longer must life be like this? How much longer until the fullness of God's presence is revealed among us? How much longer until we live in a peaceable kingdom? And so we wait. And we wait. And we wait some more. Waiting, if we're honest, is a tough thing. We don't like to wait. We want to fill our time. We want to experience it now. And this waiting thing is really old because it's been 2,500 years of waiting for the fullness of the peaceable kingdom to come on earth as it is in heaven. And we are still waiting. And you know what I know about people? People don't like to wait. It's a true story. How many of you have ever flown to Houston before? There's an airport in Houston called Houston Airport. I'm sure it has a really nice name, but I don't know what it is. Hobby? Oh, George Bush. George W. or George Jr.? The little guy. The strategery guy. Yeah. My favorite word that George W. Bush ever said in a speech was strategery. Did you ever remember that? I was in tears laughing. I use it all the time now. Anyways, that has nothing to do with anything. But at the Houston airport, they had a serious problem on their hands. They were getting complaint after complaint after complaint. Because once you got off your plane and walked to the baggage carousel, you had to sit and wait, and people were complaining that the wait was so long. And so they got all their leadership together and began the process of finding a way to be more efficient in this experience. And so what they did was they hired more people in order that they would be able to move bags faster, and they got it down below the industry average of 8 minutes that it would take to get the bag off the plane and onto the carousel. And they thought people will be happy because it's only an 8-minute wait. 1 minute from the gate to the carousel, and only 7 minutes they had to wait. And people just kept complaining. We have to wait, it takes so long. And so they got their leadership together again. They came up with a new idea. We're going to take all the arrival gates and put them at the end of the airport and put the departure gates at the beginning so people had to walk further to the carousel And guess how long it takes you about to walk from the end to the carousel? 8 minutes. And they never again heard a complaint. Same amount of time, a different experience of waiting. Well, it ends up that an MIT researcher by the name of Richard Larson decided to study what this is all about, and just waiting in particular. And this is what he says. Often the psychology of queuing or waiting is more important than the statistics of the wait itself. Essentially, we tolerate occupied time, for example, walking to the baggage claim, far better than unoccupied time, standing for 7 minutes at the baggage claim. Now, I started noticing something about humanity, and you probably have done this too. If I am waiting somewhere, what do most people tend to do now? Pull out their phone and start playing, right? We aren't very good with unoccupied time. And so what we try to do is fill it so that we don't feel like we're actually having to wait. And so hence your doctor's office always has every magazine you've ever wanted to read. Because if you can fill the time, it doesn't feel like you're waiting. But if there's empty time, it feels like you're wasting time, or that the wait is longer. How many of you, if you're honest, it's Communion Sunday, so it should be confessional, are not very good at waiting? How many of you love 5 minutes of waiting with nothing to do? Like 3 of you. God bless you. You could be the greatest teachers of this day. But we understand this, the occupied time and the unoccupied time, in the terms of our faith. Our faith is one marked by a waiting for the coming of Messiah in such a way that the whole world is different. And so in the meantime, while we wait for the fullness of this kingdom, we fill our time with busyness and things to do and places to go and seasons to celebrate. So what is it that we're really waiting for? We're really waiting for the fullness of God's kingdom to come to bear among us today. So we turn to this ancient prophecy from Isaiah. And interestingly, it starts not with Isaiah heard, but instead Isaiah saw. Isaiah saw, he had a vision of what this kingdom would be like. And in that vision, it's very clear as we study for these next 4 weeks, these prophecies of Isaiah this time of year. And what was clear in this vision was a time in which the reality of God fills our time and space. And the world is different because of it. Often in our world, we know too much violence. We know too much division and discord. We know too many ways in which we're different from each other rather than seeing how we're very similar to one another, not just in this room, but all over this world. And so what we beat the drum of is that we have to learn how to protect ourselves from the others, from them. And the them is always changing in this world. And so what we do is we build these walls around us to protect ourselves. And to protect has become synonymous to insulating ourselves from the others, from the them. And yet Isaiah dares to prophesy a different vision of the reality of our world when he says this. Many peoples will come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways so that we may walk in his paths. The law will go out from him from Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for the many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. And nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. So come, you descendants of Jacob, and let us walk in the light of the world, of the Lord." You see, this kingdom that God is envisioning, that Isaiah prophesies about, is a kingdom marked by peace. It's a peaceable kingdom in which God is the arbitrator who settles accounts, who comes together and brings us together. And as we flood to this high mountain, this place of God, what we find is that we are gathered together as one. As we're gathered together as one, we take the weapons that we use to defend ourselves and to isolate ourselves, and instead we turn them into useful things to cultivate the fields, to cultivate the very essence of God among us. And so it's a daring vision. And he goes on later to talk about this one who comes, who's named Prince of Peace. and gives us the image of the lion and the lamb laying together as one. This vision of Isaiah is that it's a different kind of world, and that we abandon the old ways and learn how to live into the new ways. And so as Messiah comes, as the season that unfolds before us, why isn't it happened already? We're still waiting for the fullness of this image to take root. But then we're reminded that Jesus loved to teach. And he loved to teach in what? Parables. And one of his favorite parables is the kingdom of heaven is like. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that's so inconsequential and small that you would lose it if you dropped it. But yet when it takes root, it expands and grows to one of the biggest shrubs that you can find. Or the kingdom of heaven is like yeast that goes into the dough and it works its way in the dough so that the dough rises and grows and it grows and it grows. Or the kingdom of heaven is like a field with a treasure. And the person goes and sells everything that they have so that they can buy that field because that treasure is the most important thing in this world. Or the kingdom of heaven is like the pearl of great price. That nothing compares to having this little pearl, this kingdom. And so we seek it with all of our might. And so Jesus tickles us with this imagery of the kingdom of heaven that isn't fast in coming, but instead is slow. And sometimes I wonder, God, we have really good ideas, all of us collective, right? And God, if you are all powerful and you have the ability to create the world the way that you envision it to be, why don't you just do it now? Haven't we had enough violence in our world? Haven't we had enough discord to last a millennial or perhaps eternity? Why don't you just, God, through your Spirit, go and make it happen? Well, it's according to Jesus. What we learn about the kingdom is that it's always slow in growing. It's slow. It starts small. And it keeps growing larger. And this kingdom is more valuable than anything we can find. And so we must learn how to seek it with all that we are. See, I'm convinced that even if our world knew peace, and there was no violence and no wars, and all of us turned our weapons into tools of cultivation, the reality is that we still have to deal with us, me. Is that peace is something that's an internal thing, isn't it? Certainly there's global peace that we all hope for. But the reality is that you just celebrated Thanksgiving. Thanks be to God. And some of you had to do forced family fun, right? In which you gathered together with some of your family members. I'm just assuming this. I don't know this to be true. With some family members that you may choose not to hang out with any other time of the year. And you sat around a table and ate turkey or sushi or something else. And you prayed for that in that moment, how long, O Lord? How long will this last? Because we understand that sometimes there's tensions within relations. And those tensions sometimes are so deep that we don't even know what caused them. And then until we find peace within ourselves, how are we ever going to find peace in our world? And not just peace within ourselves, but peace among ourselves. And so I'm reminded of Dalai Lama's words. We can never obtain peace in the outer world until we make peace with ourselves. And it's a high calling, isn't it? This peaceable kingdom that we are waiting, that would come to bear on earth as is in heaven. So what role do you play in it? Well, we are the peacemongers. We're the ones that go out and dare to speak peace to another and to live peace inside of ourselves. And when we do, it creates a beautiful tapestry of God's kingdom among us. Mexican artist by the name of Pedro Reyes, who has a different way of doing art. His latest project is called Disarm, in which he has collected 6,700 guns that were turned in or seized by the army and police in Mexico and has turned them into musical instruments. When asked where this come from, he realized the incredible despair that is in our world, and these weapons that cause great harm could be used for something greater. It all started in 2008 when he started a project called Palas por Pistolas. That's my amazing Spanish pronunciations. Or also known as pistols to shovels, in which he melted 1,527 weapons to make the same number of shovels in order to plant the same number of trees. When asked about it, he said, "It's not just a protest, but it's a proposal. To me, at least, the concept is about taking weapons that are destructive in nature and chaotic and trying to make them something else. So instead of objects of destruction, they become objects of creation." When asked, how did he come up with this idea? He simply said, the prophet Isaiah said, "On the great day of the Lord, they will hammer their swords into plowshares." The season, we light this first candle, the candle of hope. How much longer? How much longer, O God, until we see a peaceable kingdom on earth as is in heaven? How much longer until you and I choose the way of peace instead of division and discord? How much longer, O Lord, before you truly are Emmanuel, the God who is with us? This Advent, may we live into the hope of this season. That our reality of our world is not the final say, but instead, this kingdom is slowly sprouting in us and around us and through us.